Good to go?
All right, we are broadcasting.
Okay, welcome everybody to this afternoon's agenda session at 3:30, April 14th, is Tuesday, 2020. I now call us to order. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded. We don't need to do a roll call on this, do we?
No, sir, not right now.
Okay, just tonight at 6, okay. All in favor with the sign of aye?
Aye.
Opposes nay? Motion carries. Okay, before we actually get into the agenda, I do want to make it known that tonight at our 6 o'clock meeting, we will have an elections of officers for the 2021 council year. So I just make that statement as a matter of record for this meeting. Now, at this time, we will move on to item number 6, which is a public hearing for a de-annexation. Madam Clerk, would you please read that? Item number 6.
An ordinance de-annexing a certain parcel adjacent to the current city limits, which is located at 2815 Military Road within the city of Chattanooga in Hamilton County, Tennessee.
Okay, Mr. Nobley, would you like to share with us what's getting ready to happen, a motion I'm going to make tonight?
Yes, sir. We have had a little bit of a difficulty here because we needed to have a presentation by the fire department, police department, and public works employees regarding this matter, all of whom are out in East Brainerd right now trying to handle an emergency because of the tornado on Easter Sunday night. And because of that, I would request that this case be deferred for 2 weeks, if possible, just to give us an opportunity to get everybody in and get the notices out.
That is great. So tonight, I will make a motion to defer this item until April the 28th.
Okay, sir.
Okay, thank you. Now, Madam Clerk, let's move on to ordinances on first reading. Let's start with a planning item, 8A.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance, so as to rezone property located at 7301 Shallowford Road from R1 residential zone to C4 planned commerce center zone, subject to certain conditions.
Thank you. Is John Bridger on here?
Let me double check.
He's on.
Mr. Chair, did we go over these last week?
Well, this is, no, we didn't have a planning. Did we have a planning committee meeting last week?
Yes, we did.
Okay, then these items would have been a matter of record from last week. Thank you, Councilman Mitchell. So,
Mr. Chair, I think, well, maybe we need to go over this one because of the request to defer
Request
it.
for deferral.
yeah, exactly. Okay, Madam Clerk, let's read.
And John's
in now.
Okay, yeah, I see his face. All right, Madam Clerk, let's go as I started to mention. Let's go with 8A.
Okay. Sorry, did I just read 8A?
Yes.
You did.
I'm sorry.
Yes,
Yes, you did. Okay, so thank you very much. John, let's go over what this is about because there's going to be a request for a deferral.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
we hear you fine, sir.
Yeah, I think we received a request to defer for 30 days from the applicant. And as I understand it, per the guidance of the city attorney, that council just need to take action to basically make a motion to defer. And I think we talked about deferring this till the second Tuesday in May when the other normal cases come before council for consideration.
Okay, you're right. I spoke briefly with Councilman Ledford. He will be here tonight to make that deferral. And based on previous discussion, that deferral will go to May the 12th.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bridger. Now let's, item B was read into the record last week, Madam Clerk, so you won't have to go through that one. We will now move on to resolutions. 9A under Economic and Community Development.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Economic and Community Development to renew a contract with Civic Plus Incorporated for a management software system that facilitates online reservations and payments for city parks, Facilities and Outdoor Chattanooga programs for the first of 2 available renewal terms in the amount of $12,500.
Okay, seeing none. Let's move on to short-term vacation rentals, 9B.
A resolution approving short-term vacation rental application number 19 STVR 00184 for property located at 1420 Madison Street.
I
Councilman
believe we
Byrd.
went over these last week.
Yeah, we did, but they were deferred, and I wanted to make sure from Councilman Byrd's standpoint and my standpoint that if there's anything we need to know prior to getting there tonight. So Councilman Byrd?
Yes, sir. Tonight, I think I'm going to need another deferral. The neighborhood association is getting their ducks in a row to set up some rules sort of engagement of how they're going to handle short-term vacation rentals. And so if not a deferral, we will be acting on it, but I'm 90% sure we're going to be asking for a deferral on this one for 1 more week.
Okay, then you can make that determination tonight, Councilman Byrd.
Yes, sir.
Sure. Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, Vice Chairman Henderson.
I see Ms. Williams is in attendance. Who will be presenting tonight, these short-term vacation rental hearings? Do we know?
Who will?
Bring her in, Councilman Smith. Yeah,
I'm happy to.
yeah.
Ms. Williams, just a moment.
Awesome. Can you all hear me?
Hey, Donna, we can hear you.
Oh, very good. Charlie and Caleb are both set up so that either and or both can present. We just want them to be doubly cautious with the technology.
Okay.
Yeah.
So who would you suggest try to start first then?
Can you pull up Richard, Councilman Smith?
Richard?
Beelan?
Richard Beelan?
Yeah, Richard.
Just a moment.
He's more aware.
Mr. Beelan.
There he is.
Hey, so they're both ready. So Caleb is standing by ready for it, and so is Charlie. They both have it. So I'd go with Charlie first, and then if he's unavailable, then Caleb's right. We're standing there beside him.
Okay. Hey, excuse me a moment, Mr. Chair. May I ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely, Councilman Smith.
Hey, Richard, Donna, would you please be sure, and I'm just probably going to have to reiterate this several times as we move along, but for any staff and all those that are listening, when you join, please be sure to use your first and last name. There are some staff members that we may not be as fully familiar with, and considering the public is joining as attendees as well, when we are looking for somebody to bring in, it's a lot easier to know full names as opposed to a first initial last name or something of that matter, so that we're not bringing the wrong person into the meeting for presentations or that nature. And I know we kind of ran into that last time when we were doing short-term vacation rentals. I mean, we managed to find the right people, but we did have to be careful based on the name. It was more like guessing to make sure we got the right person in.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Smith.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any other discussion under this matter? If not, Madam Clerk, item number C has been read into the record, and we'll just simply go through the presentation tonight, and hopefully a decision will be made at that time. Okay, so now let's move on to Resolution Human Resources, item 9D.
A resolution authorizing the Chief Human Resources Officer to renew a last year option with Cornerstone on Demand for the Learning Management System in the amount of $35,900.
Okay. Councilman Gilbert, is there anything you want to share with us on that? Are we good? Uh-oh.
Put your mic on.
Russell, we lost your mic.
I want to defer this to April 21st.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman Gilbert. So tonight you will make a deferral to defer this until April the 21st.
Yeah.
So noted. Thank you, sir. Okay, let's move on to resolution under legal, item 9E. E, Madam Clerk.
A resolution authorizing the Office of the City Attorney to retain Croy Engineering LLC for expert witness services in the defense of 2 civil cases against the city. Karen Allen, heir and next of kin of Charlie Allen, decedent, versus City of Chattanooga, and James P. Little, MD, and Little Company of Tennessee LLC versus City of Chattanooga for an amount not to exceed $50,000.
Thank you. Mr. Noblet, would you like to give us a little background on that, please, sir?
Yes, sir. This involves a guy by the name of Russell Moorhead, who has done a number of work for us here with the city. Russell has gone to a new engineering firm, Croy Engineering, and he has helped us quite heavily on the Little case that we have outstanding to come up with a list of items that can be accomplished here fairly quickly, depending on what the chancellor has in line for us as far as the order. He also did a lot of work for us on the Allen case, which we just recently settled based upon his work that he's done. So that's what it's about.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Noblet. Any questions regarding this matter? Excellent. Now we'll move on to planning item 9F, please, Madam Clerk.
A resolution approving a special exceptions permit for a planned unit development for properties located in the 1900 block of Mack Lane, 8600 block of Igo Gap Road, and 1900 block of Morris Hill Road.
Okay. Any questions regarding that matter? We have John, if you have any. Okay, seeing none, thank you very much. That concludes this part of our afternoon agenda session. Normally, we would have had a departmental report by the police department, but they're out in our torn area doing emergency work, and we'll defer their report till a later date as such. We get over some of these challenges we got going in our city right now. Now we'll move on to purchasing. Are there any questions related to tonight's purchases? Okay. Seeing none. Normally, we would have had a Youth and Family Development Committee report, but they have requested, Councilman Coonrod and that team with the YFD has requested that they reschedule it to the later date. So that report will follow as soon as they're ready to present. So that concludes my part of the afternoon agenda session. I would now turn it over to Public Works and Transportation Committee Chair, Jerry Mitchell. Councilman Mitchell, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I see several folks. We're going to start with Public Works today. Who is going to be speaking for Public Works if there are any questions?
I see.
Donald Stone is in attendance.
Yeah, I got Donald, I got Dennis, I got Bill Payne, I got several. Okay, Donald is it you? He's gonna have to unmute.
Yes, it's gonna be me, sir.
Welcome. Welcome.
Thank you.
Let's start with the agenda for Tuesday, April 14th. Resolutions 9G, please.
A resolution authorizing the approval of change order number 2, final, for Integrated Properties LLC of Chattanooga, Tennessee, relative to contract number C16005-201, City Yards Carpenter Shop and Water Quality Storage Building for an increased amount of $4,839 to release the remaining contingency in the amount of $161 for a revised contract amount of $278,632.75.
I don't see any hands raised. So we will move to 9H.
A resolution authorizing the mayor to sign an interlocal agreement with the city of Red Bank, adjusting the boundaries in accordance with TCA section 651302 for a vacant parcel of land adjacent to Pine Breeze Road, so that it will be maintained and be included in the corporate boundaries of the city of Red Bank from the effective date of this attached interlocal agreement forward.
Mr. Attorney.
Yes, sir. I have been in contact with Attorney Stultz again this afternoon concerning this. We do not have a final agreement. I was requesting if we could have a short extension. I know that earlier Vice Chair had mentioned that it might ought to go off a month. If we can have 2 weeks, I think we can get it accomplished. Mr. Stultz is dealing with a portion of a development that this would be roughly 20% of that development, and it's in the city of Chattanooga, but we have not maintained, I think, the Pine Breeze Road adjacent to it on here. And it's a situation where they are agreeing to provide us with a specific number of taxable years, even if it went into Red Bank as part of this development. But that's what I'm trying to work out, and Mr. Stultz and I are trying to do that. I was sending that on to Councilman Mitchell so that at least he could be aware of that in connection with approving or not approving this agreement.
Okay, and so is the ball in Mr. Stoltz's court?
It is, yes. I've sent it back to him, and I've sent him a revised copy here based upon what we discussed before, and hopefully he will give me something back here within the week.
All right. Everybody okay with that? Don't see any questions? All right, if we can move on then to 9I, please.
A resolution authorizing payment in the amount of $247,500 to Southeastern Greenworks LLC for the required wetlands mitigation fee to satisfy TDEC requirements related to property to be used for the Waste Resources Division Renewable Energy Project.
Before we go there, I guess just to close up the last one, H, you're asking for someone to ask for a deferral for 2 weeks? Phil?
Yes, sir. If we could defer it till the 28th, probably would be good.
Okay, I'll make that motion. Okay, now this is something that was moved from next week's agenda to this week's agenda, I believe. It looks like by Vice Chairman Henderson and Chairman Oglesby. It's kind of hard to argue with those two.
And what you want to know?
Well, I mean, does anybody need some explanation? I was here for us to give an explanation. I mean, I think we did cover this in the look ahead a while back before it got put on the agenda. But is there anyone that has any questions, either about it being moved to this week or what it involves? Well,
Let's move on.
All right, we'll move on then, and we'll move to next week, April 21st. Again, resolution 7D, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to award contract number R19007-201 to Thomas Brothers Construction Company of Hickson, Tennessee, Walnut Street Plaza, in the amount of $2,239,919.50, plus a contingency amount of $110,000 for a contract amount of $2,349,919.50.
Vice Chairman Henderson, do I got to do something here, or can he come in? Just come on in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Stone, I want to make sure that I understand the complete scope of this and make sure that this $2 million, what all it includes and the complete scope of work.
Mr. Vice Chair, to like fully understand that, there's a laundry list of things that they're doing, but it's all related to the Walnut Street Plaza, the Ed Johnson Memorial, the steps for the Holmberg Bridge, getting all that stuff prepared. And I mean, there's about, I'm looking at easily 80 some items.
Okay.
80, over 100 some items that they're doing inside of this. So
let me ask it this way.
Okay.
I keep hearing the word prep work. Is there other funds that would need to follow this, other contracts that would need to be let after this money would be approved, or is this total project? Because I don't see a contingent. Is there? Yeah. Okay. There is a contingency in there.
Mm-hmm.
So is this prep work, construction, walk away from it, cut the ribbon?
I do not believe so, sir, but I do not know if Justin Steinman is on the call. He has the details of as far as like what will come next after this, but this is the whole plaza, getting it kind of up to level for the additional projects that we'll have going on in that area. You got the Scramble, the Ed Johnson Memorial, as I mentioned, the Holmberg Street Steps, all that entire area, getting it up, getting it going. There is, I think definitely the steps will be completed in this, but it's really just that entire area, getting it ready for all of the different work that will be going on up there.
Okay.
If you have, I can have Justin Steinman get in touch with you to give you the details of the details.
Okay. All right, and this is on for next week too, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me ask one more question, Mr. Chair. Hold on, just I'm trying to run through all these links. Under our documentations, it says funds budgeted, and you've got yes and no. Does that mean some are and some aren't, or what's that mean?
Mr. Vice Chair, I would have to defer to Mr. Steinman and have him give you those particulars. I don't want to misspeak.
Okay, I'll get with him.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is a laundry list of stuff, and I spoke with Justin this morning, and he would be the best person to answer those questions for you, because I had many of those same questions when I spoke with him this morning after our 9:30 meeting. So
Don't break in line again.
I'm sorry, sir.
Okay. Councilman Gilbert.
Mr. Stone, is any money going to be spent on the 21st century on any of these projects?
Councilman Gilbert, I would have to defer to Mr. Steinman as well as Ms. Madison on that.
Okay. Is Daisy here today?
She's on.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, would you like Ms. Madison to join the meeting?
Yeah, I'd love to get some answers. We got some questions. All we need is some answers.
All right. Would you restate the question?
Is any of the 21st century money going to be on this project right here currently?
The one that we're just talking about, the Walnut Street Bridge project?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Yes, there will be some hotel motel tax dollars involved.
Can you give us the amount?
No, I don't have that. Justin would have to be the specifics on the dollar amounts, but
Yes.
They are, yes, they are. They do include hotel motel tax dollars, and I think it also includes some private donations.
So this is on next week, like Councilman Chip said. Can you have it by next Tuesday?
Sure. I'm pretty sure Justin could even have it this afternoon, but sure.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Any more questions? Donald, I have one. It's my fault for not doing this in advance. So if you're not prepared for it, I understand, but I'm going to want an answer pretty quickly. Whatever happened to the repairs to the Walnut Street Bridge? We're spending almost $2.5 million on just the plaza. And I believe we had $10 to $13 million planned to renovate the Walnut Street Bridge, and it's closed right now. So it's probably a pretty good time to be working on it. What's the status of that?
Mr. Chair, I would have to get with the city engineer, Mr. Bill Payne. I know there was several steps that we had to go through to make sure that we had some approvals. I don't think that this closing was obviously not planned. And so based on the staging and the timing of the different phases of the project, I would have to get in contact with Bill Payne.
Mr. Payne is an attendee. Would Mr. Payne come up and address this for us right now?
I'd be happy to, Mr. Chair.
This is like magic.
I know Councilman Smith does a wonderful job. There's a button that comes up and you press it and suddenly you can talk. So, to address that question, we are in the process right now with TDOT for the NEPA process, which is the environmental process. We're very close to the end of that, and once we get to the end of the NEPA process, they will give us an authorization to proceed with the rest of the design work and complete the construction documents. So I agree with you. It would be an ideal time to do some work if we had a bid and a contractor available, but we're not at that stage. There's about $5.3 million of federal funds that are going in with the city's funding on that project on the Walnut Street Bridge. So that's the reason why we're making sure we go step by step through the federal process with TDOT.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to see if I could creep over and get some of Chairman Oglesby's money, but I guess not. Okay. Thank you, Bill.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Steinman is available. Would you like me to bring him in and so he can address that question from earlier?
Councilman Henderson, would you like to hear from him right now?
Sure.
Okay, let's do it.
Council, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, and I apologize. I was on a call actually talking about some of the details of this project with other staff just a minute ago. What were your specific questions? I'll be glad to try and address them.
Have I got the floor, Mr. Chair?
Yes, you do.
Thank you. Justin, in the documentation, one of the questions were, are funds budgeted? And you've got the answer yes and then no. Does that mean some are and some will be in next year's budget? The other question that I had is, out of the total amount, is this a walk-away price? Is this just get us started? I keep hearing prep work. Is there going to be more contracts, more or additional money that would follow this amount of money?
No, sir.
I'm trying to get a full picture here.
Certainly, yeah. As far as the project cost, this is the all-inclusive cost for the Walnut Plaza project. So it includes grading, which I think is where the confusion comes from, because it's grading for both this project, but also for the Ed Johnson Memorial Project. There are some challenges with where the Ed Johnson Memorial actually needs to go, as far as because of some of its foundation work is going to undermine an existing retaining wall. And it turned out to be quite a bit cheaper for us to do the work of replacing the retaining wall and grading for the memorial, and then let the artists do the above ground work essentially. But they are paying us for that. As far as the cost, this is being paid for all through hotel motel dollars. Some of it was budgeted in a previously. Some of it is being transferred from other projects that are either not moving forward or have been rolled into the scope of this, which would be $200,000 from the Holmberg Bridge and $350,000 from the Chattanooga Green Project. And then the remainder is a combination of external funds funneled through River City Company, which are from Lyndhurst and Benwood Foundations. And the Ed Johnson Memorial Group will be paying for their share of the site work preparation, and that will come through the Community Foundation.
Okay, so if I understand right, all the money has been budgeted and is accounted for.
There is a small amount, because the amount from Ed Johnson was not originally anticipated to be coming from a different source. We are going to need to amend the capital budget in FY21 to reflect the dollars that are coming from them, as well as a slight revision to what we're receiving from River City. Before this proceeds, we'll have a collaboration agreement prepared between the Community Foundation and City Attorney's Office that outlines all the funds and operational responsibilities between Ed Johnson and the city. So their amount will be stipulated in that document. And then we'll also have a funding letter from River City that specifies exactly how much we're getting from them. So, but we will need to include those adjustments in the FY21 capital budget.
Okay. I'm gonna, so you just described some pass-through money, correct?
Yes, sir. Both for this project and others such as Patton Parkway and Miller Park,
Yeah, well,
River City has acted as the pass-through agent.
Okay, but what I'm still getting at is there a dollar amount that has not been budgeted for included in this project?
Yes, a small amount, because the amount that we originally were going to receive from Ed Johnson was going to funnel through River City. Now it's coming directly from them, and the amount is larger, so we will need to budget for that.
And how much would that be?
I think the delta from the approved budget is, and we've actually been doing some revisions to the contract amount, but it looks like right now it's about 300,000, approximately 300 to 320.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. See no more hands. I believe we're going to move on to 7E.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to award contract number Y15008-203 to Thomas Brothers Construction Company Incorporated of Hickson, Tennessee, for Avondale Youth and Family Development Center site improvements in the amount of $2,941,097, plus a contingency amount of $150,000 for an amount not to exceed $3,091,097.
Councilman Byrd.
Thank you, Chair. Donald, is this the improvements to the parking area that's going to be completed?
Councilman Byrd, as I look through the document, it is some of the parking areas, some removal of some items, so we can get some improvements that we are looking for. Some benches and different things on the exterior.
Chair, is it okay? Is Mora on?
Yes.
Hello,
Hello, Ms. Mora. How you doing, ma'am?
I am well, Councilman. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. This resolution 7E, I was trying to see what all the scope of work will be for this, the rest of the money that's coming for this project. And I would like to see if we can set up a Zoom meeting with the committee, myself, so that we can get an understanding of how it looks, the layout, and what all this money is going toward.
That sounds like a great idea. We'd be happy to do that, sir.
All right, thank you. Would you be in touch to let me know how we can set that up, or we can get in touch with each other to make that happen?
I sure will. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Moore.
Thank you, sir.
I got it, Councilman Byrd?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That looks like it for Public Works, unless there's any questions, other questions for Donald, or any other comments? Seeing no.
Wait a minute.
Go ahead, Councilman.
He might can answer this one. It's dealing with the purchasing with the Parks Division, Public Works, on the $350,000. Is that yearly, Donald?
I did not catch that question, Councilman. Can you ask again?
On the purchasing for tonight, we have Parks and Division, Public Works, and it's about maintenance, ground maintenance for city parks. It's for $350,000. Is that a yearly cost?
Give me 1 second here. I'm trying to find that. Councilman, I apologize. The purchasing that I received, I do not see that on here.
Well, it's on, I believe, tonight. So hopefully by 6 o'clock, y'all probably can give me some answers on that particular one.
Okay, thank you. We will.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
That get it, Councilman?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Looks like we're going to move on to transportation. Mr. Bailey. There he is. Oh, he's ready. Okay, it looks like we got one resolution this week and one resolution next week. We'll start with the one this week. Please read 9J.
A resolution authorizing the approval of change order number 1 with ASA Engineering and Consulting Incorporated for contract number D17019-101 for Patton Parkway Pedestrian Plaza for an increased amount of $84,893.78 for a revised contract amount not to exceed $377,700.16.
Councilman Byrd.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Bailey, could you give me an understanding of the extra money?
Certainly, Mr. Councilman. This is a change order for our engineering consultant, ASA Engineering, who's our local engineer. They've been the lead engineer and designer for the project since it started several years ago. This change order accounts for some scope increases due to some surprises, some increases in the scope of work, as well as what can commonly be called soft costs associated with some extra time that we need for the consultant to oversee construction administration. There are some line items that you can see in your materials that account for all those items, and I'm happy to discuss any of them in more detail.
Okay, I'll pause for a second. Thank you.
Councilman Gilbert, is your hand up from the last question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chairman Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Bailey, let me ask, in this new scope of work that we're doing, will this lead to additional construction cost?
In some respects, yes, Councilman. This is changed. This is increased scope for our design consultant, who is designing a couple of things that will result in construction changes. There's a range of items. For example, it was discovered that some of the sidewalks are hollow underneath, and so there's some additional structural components that need to be incorporated into the design that will likely cause a construction cost change in the future after the design is complete. There's also additional sidewalk scope. We've elected to continue the paving pattern down Georgia and around MLK to solve some maintenance liabilities, as well as take advantage of a potential partnership that would result in half of that cost being borne by the property owner. And there's probably a handful of other, there was a construction scope change that was required due to one of the property owners not allowing us to do what we had proposed, which resulted in a change that we had to accommodate into the design.
Okay, will these additional costs be reflected in next year's budget?
Yes, sir. As of now, we are very close to being able to accommodate the construction changes that we expect. But given that the project is expected to, the schedule has us going through October, the beginning of October. We do have plans to request some more funds, both to accommodate some of these expected changes that are coming up, as well as give us a little more contingency to get through the end of the project.
Do we have an estimate on what that would be?
Well, the contingency, of course, is a comfort zone, and we're trying to be strategic about how we do that, because we don't necessarily want to have contingency if we don't need it. So I think we're inclined to be very conservative about that. I'd rather not. We do have a couple of things that are still in the works to figure out what some of those costs are, the structural issues and the sidewalk issues. I'd rather not estimate at this point because I'd rather keep that as low as possible to avoid any of the contingency being used. And like I said, we're very, very close right now to being able to do all of these things without needing any extra funds. So I just want to be very careful that we don't ask for any more than what we need.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I've got a couple more if you'd like to go on to someone else, or if anybody else has any questions.
We have no one else. I have one, but I'll wait on you. Go ahead.
Okay. Mr. Bailey, in your backup documents, the construction administration, we've got about 37,000 in, and then the use of the Ox Blue camera is about 8,000. At this point, being so far into the project and having a grasp of it, could we not eliminate those additional costs and take that money and apply it to the construction costs that we're going to have in the coming future? And where I'm going with this is obviously next year is going to be a tight and budget year, and looking at how we can save money now to prevent spending money later. The construction administration and the camera use, can we not, well, obviously the camera would just eliminate, can we not do the construction administration in-house?
I'm asked that question, Councilman. Those are the items that I characterized as soft costs. I will say that we almost always, when we have a professional consultant on board, pay for their professional services to oversee construction administration as a way to limit city liability. Those extra services could potentially be accomplished by our staff. We have, my personal opinion, one of our best project managers assigned to this project, who is very detailed and watching this project very closely. That staff member, like all of our staff, has multiple projects that they're overseeing. So I would worry if we didn't have these funds available so that we could use these professional services of our consultant, that we might be vulnerable from a liability standpoint. But the direct answer to your question is that I do think we could attempt to cover these soft costs in construction administration with our own staff. Certainly a portion of it. I think some of those aspects might be less important to us as we get later in the project. The project is in full bore right now, and I very much want those services now. But as we get towards the end of construction, I think it does become, I do become more comfortable that we could do those services with our staff only. The camera has, I think, saved us some money and time. But it's definitely a nicety that we don't need, so we could forego that as well. And I have discussed this change order with my staff on multiple occasions, most recently today, in preparation and anticipation of some of these questions. And we'll say that if the council elects to approve this change order, that doesn't mean that we're guaranteed to spend this. We're very much prepared to be smart with the staff that we've got as we move, especially given what you alluded to, Councilman, about the concerns about revenues coming up in the new year. And so if we are given the opportunity to use these services, I think it would help us a lot. And as we get closer to the end of the construction, we would endeavor to not use these services if they aren't needed, where we could give some money back at the end at the project closeout.
So one other question, Mr. Chair, and I guess it would come down to maybe a question for Blythe or the attorney. I know that we can amend this, but Blythe, is this written in a contract, or how would the council go about amending to take the 6 months of construction administration and the 8 months of the camera out of this?
I'll take a stab at answering that and happily be corrected by Mr. Noblet. As I understand it, this change order form can be modified administratively by us and would become part of the contract if it's approved. So if the council wishes to amend it, we would simply strike those lines, and that would become the agreed upon change order. Alternatively, we could add a clause that indicate there's more sort of control over authorization, whereas maybe those items can be electives that we approve on a monthly basis, which might be a middle ground where we can use the services if we feel like we need, but then aren't obligated, and they're not sort of a bottom line for the consultant to see on their contract and maybe approved on a monthly basis. But I think we could modify this and it would be reflected in the legal contract, but I'll stop talking and let Mr. Attorney correct me if he thinks I'm wrong.
This is part of the contract that you would have with ASA Engineering and Consulting, and it's whatever the parties agree on at that point in time. So this, you've already got a contract. This is a change order amount that is requesting an additional item. If you don't agree to all of it, it's whatever items you would agree with.
Okay. Thank you. That answered my question. Thank you, Mr. Bailey, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. I see Councilperson Burrs has stepped up.
Thank you. So I think what my colleague is asking, is this an as-needed contract, Blythe?
Councilwoman Burrs, this currently as written gives us the ability to use our professional consultant for 6 months of construction administration and 8 months of an additional camera. In my opinion, the way those are written, it is as needed. We have an understanding, I believe, with our consultant that if we only needed 5 months or if we only needed 4 months, we would only pay for that amount. And it's proportional. That could be clarified in a document. That was sort of the middle ground that I was describing.
Right. I think probably if it's clear that it's as needed, that it's totally within our power not to need certain things without limiting you at the front end.
I believe that's true, and I believe we have a relationship with our consultant such that they would agree as well, but I'm happy to clarify that with them if helpful.
Well, then I would suggest that we consider making it an as-needed contract in writing, which gives us control over what we need and what we don't need, and at the same time doesn't hamper you, particularly at the front end where you're important. So rather than just an understanding with our consultant, if we could have it in writing with our consultant that it's as needed, then I think that would answer some of my colleagues' concerns.
I don't believe that's currently in here in the change order as needed. So if you want to do that, we need to add it.
Yeah, I think you're right, Mr. Chair. And so I think if there's any concerns, the way to fix those without hampering Blythe is as needed. Then every time there's an as needed, at least if it's over $25,000, then we would be approving that. I just think that's a better way to go.
I'm fine with that, Mr. Attorney. If that were the change that we made, would we simply change the third page of the PDF, which is the change order form? Would that satisfy the change legally, sir?
Yes, it needs to be as needed as determined by the city on here. So it doesn't need to be up to ASA to make the determination.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councilman Burr.
Thank you, Chair. Blythe, due to the building and on MLK where some of this sidewalk is going to be developed, isn't it the practice of the city to where if updates are done to a building at so much cost that the person that owns the building would update the sidewalks of that nature? And if that is so, why these sidewalks weren't updated when I know that it was things done to that building that were updated in here recently?
Councilman, actually when I first started, the renovations were made. You're correct that you all know that when permits are pulled for development projects, whether they're renovations or new construction, Typically, the developers are required to build sidewalks or improve those sidewalks. That did happen on this building. Specifically, the most recent renovation was where the camp house was until recently located. And the property owner did do significant work to redo that sidewalk. I remember that because I was called to a meeting because there were challenges associated with how to meet grade and have accessibility. And so those changes were made to the building when it was a development project. It's currently not a development project. And so in this case, this was a part of our public project that we felt like needed to be done as an extension of the parkway, given that the property owner agreed to pay for half of that work and also had agreed to donate. See a good deal for the city while we had an active contractor, we could solve a problem and do the project the right way.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Councilperson Burrs, were you want to jump back in or you just didn't lower your hand?
Oh, gosh, no, forgot to lower, my bad, sorry.
That's quite all right. All right, my question, Blight. The property owner that would not allow what we wanted to do, were we going to encroach upon their property doing what we wanted to do?
Yes, sir. We had a series of meetings, both for the general public as well as with property owners on this project. I think we did a very good job. I participated in probably 90% of those meetings myself. And we had, because as you all know, the design of the new parkway has a continual streetscape from one end to the other. And that design required a reconfiguration of, there's only one existing parking lot that's accessed off the parkway, and it serves a small number of cars. I understand for some of the people that work in some of the offices on the north side of the parkway, that parking lot, if reconfigured to have a center drive aisle, it allowed us to create a continual streetscape and not interrupt our trees. We felt like it was the right design. We reviewed it with the property owners during design. We certainly got the impression they were favorable, but we did not get anything in writing. And then after we got into design, those property owners indicated they were not willing to allow us to make those changes to their property. So we had to change our design. We're losing out on one tree, and we have to locate a couple of our pieces of infrastructure in different locations. So it's an unfortunate change. But that's the background on it.
Well, we don't need to go any further with that conversation. We know who you're talking about. All right, let's move on.
Got one more, sir.
Oh, okay, please.
Mr. Bailey, if I'm if I'm reading my agenda right, that is on for tonight's agenda.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
But to change the scope of work or the change order, do we need to defer it a week?
I'm sorry. Mr. Attorney, did you say yes?
Mr. Attorney said yes, but unless we can get an agreement for the other side before 6 o'clock.
Yeah, I was going to try to get it changed before 6 o'clock, but I think if a deferral is necessary, it's fine to wait a week. But if I can get it changed and amended, Mr. Attorney, maybe I'll follow up with you this and ask that process if it can be accommodated. I'm also happy to wait either way.
If you can get all of that agreed to by ASA between now and 6 o'clock, that'd be fine.
Okay.
And change the documentation on the backup documents.
And that's the problem, how we get that to Maria before 6.
Yes, sir. Okay.
All right, before we move on, I have a question. Is the council person who represents this district okay with all these things we're talking about before we just run up and down your back like this?
That is okay. When people fish in my backyard, it's all right. I don't have a problem with it.
I'm stocking your pond.
I appreciate it. I'm okay with it.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, now we'll move to next week. We have one resolution. Please read 7F.
A resolution authorizing payment to the Tennessee Department of Transportation for the City of Chattanooga's share of an agreement with Arcadis US Incorporated relative to contract number T14021 for professional services associated with the Riverwalk Extension, Middle Street to Incline, construction, engineering, and inspection, in the amount of $62,888.14.
Mr. Chair, I have no questions if any of y'all have any. This is something that community we've been waiting on to get to that point for quite some time. So it'll be a good accomplishment.
Yes, you
for
have.
this extension.
It's been going on quite a while. You're right. I don't see any hands.
Oh, well.
Okay.
Yeah.
On a roll, Henderson.
I guess I should have asked, or if you're through with this item, I do have a comment I want to make.
Okay, so this is not about this item, it's about something else.
That's correct. Before we end Public Works.
Okay. Okay. I see no other hands, so we'll say we're for now until tonight through with this item, and then if there are any other issues about Public Works, actually, yeah, go ahead. But I do have one more thing. But go ahead, Councilman Henderson.
Okay. I noticed that Justin Holland is in attendance. I would like to, Mr. Chair, bring him up and let him give us an update on the cleanup efforts out at the tornado site.
That's a great idea. Bring him up and keep him up, and Blythe, don't you go far.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Council. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Henderson, for opportunity to speak to you about our cleanup efforts. They are ongoing and will continue to grow as we serve residents who are cleaning up their front yards and backyards and homes. Yesterday, early morning, we began to pull in some heavy equipment, and we're following the lead of the fire department and police department, who I observed trekking by foot through checking individual homes through the night. They started around 1 a.m. it seemed like. Our crews got in with some heavy equipment and began clearing roads, many of them unpassable through the first part of today. Yesterday, we made most of the roads passable through the area, and our cleanup efforts are continuing to widen the roads, working behind and coordinating with EPB, the fire department, and the police department. It's been a great coordinated effort. I think the Public Works Department will continue this work for the next several months, assisting our residents in removing debris from in front of their homes. And as they start to see some sort of normalcy on the roads and they are getting their homes in order and picking up the pieces, we will also assist them with clearing that debris from the roadway. This will probably all the road issues we'll probably try to address over the next week to week and a half, just clearing up roads. We had over 80 tree calls where roads were blocked outside of the affected tornado area. So we focused today on getting to some of those areas that were not necessarily in the tornado zone, but had people blocked in for at least most of yesterday. But our crews have done a tremendous job. We've had almost 100 people working through today, and we had several yesterday following behind EPB. So thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I'll be updating you as cleanup efforts continue over the next several months.
Mr. Henderson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Justin, I just want to tell you, I was able to witness some of the early cleanup efforts, and Public Works did an amazing job, and y'all are to be commended, you and your team, for being on top of it. The logistics were working perfectly. I was impressed with Public Works, as well as the efforts of our first responders, CPD, and Chattanooga Fire Department as well. The command center worked like it was supposed to. Teams were assigned areas. I was impressed. I was proud to represent Chattanooga. A couple of questions I have in regards to the cleanup efforts in East Chattanooga. Justin, we normally, we set up in the street and we reach just, what would be in the right of way. Are we going to loosen our policy just a little bit to be able to get a little bit further onto people's property in order to help clean up brush? And I'm assuming, are we going to allow larger pieces of brush to be placed at the road? What kind of guidelines can you give us as far as helping the residents clean up the brush?
That's a great question. So we are working right now with some press release information that'll give specifics to the residents, but in general terms, about 10 feet off of the roadway is whatever we can reach from the roadway is what we will clean up. Individuals will have to get the material to the roads. We will continue to pick up debris over the next several months. They do not have to call in for brush collection in the affected area. They don't have to call in for trash collection in the affected area. We will be working here consistently about 6 days a week until it's all collected. So we are working on that communication so that we're really clear with our residents on what we will pick up, how we pick it up, and what they need to do to separate some material so that it is easier to manage for us and them as well. That is a good question, and we're working now with the details of what FEMA allows us to do and allows for our reimbursements so that the residents receive a clear communication about that. Thank you for the question.
One other question concerning brush pickup in the rest of Chattanooga. Do we have crews available for brush pickup in the rest of the council districts, or is this something that we just need to tell our constituents, hey, just give us a day or two or a week or two and work with us, or do we have crews actually continuing to work in the rest of in the area?
As you can imagine, with everyone home in a stay-in-place order, brush collection has been already pretty heavy. People outside of the tornado zone still need to call in for brush collection. We'll continue to operate that service. As we are planning right now, we are looking for additional help in the way of contractors because this is months worth of work. Our staff are going to be working extra hours for the next several months, and we are going to have to use some assistance in order to sustain our normal level of service. This occurred similarly back in 2011, where we had our staff working extra hours, and we augmented staff working in the affected areas as well with additional equipment. So we will continue all of our normal city services, although there may be a bit of delay until we can get caught up.
Okay. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Justin, a couple of questions for me on this topic. You folks okay with your PPE?
Yes, sir. We have what we need. We continue to resupply and restock. But yes, sir, we have all the PPE that's necessary to do what we do every day. We have not seen any decline in what we needed to do our job. We had a warehouse full of equipment when we started, and there was a slowdown of getting masks, the appropriate style mask that was recommended. But I believe we have all of that now. Great.
One more question. Health conditions being what they are, this might be a little bit of a stretch, but are you getting any inquiries from other communities that are willing to come help?
I did talk to the city of Knoxville today, and they've offered to provide some assistance. We will be working with all volunteers. City of Knoxville has some resources that would be helpful, and we're going to continue to work through any volunteer offers that we get. We've had a few of those. Knoxville's been one, obviously a municipality has quite a bit of equipment that would be helpful during this time. So we are going to take up some of those offers as we evaluate each of those. We've just had about a day or so getting our feet under us, and we've had a lot of cities reach out to us. We are just now at the point where we are able to take a breath and get back to that. It's quite a bit to organize, as you imagine.
Yeah, I can imagine so, and I'm not trying to get in your way with a bunch of paperwork or anything like that, but at some point, could you please, let the council know the different communities that have come helped us, because we obviously will owe them a debt of gratitude.
Well, I've already seen several cities who have offered support in the way of police and fire departments. The public works departments are reaching out to us to coordinate some of the longer term cleanup activities that they know from previous experience would be helpful. But yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Councilman Gilbert, I see your hand.
Yes, Justin, as this go along, I know a lot of churches are asking, can they do anything to help for providing food or supplies? Would that help you any as months go on?
It certainly would. Thank you, Councilman Gilbert, for the question. All of those activities are being managed through 311, and then they're routed to the appropriate person. As the event goes on a little bit longer, Public Works crews will be sort of the only folks still hanging around months from now, and obviously we would continue to like to receive the community support. If you have somebody specific that wants to reach out to us, I would take they can email me or call 311. I will be happy to route that to the right person that would be helpful.
Okay, appreciate it.
Thank you for that, Councilman Gilbert. Great question. All right, Justin and Blythe, and I don't want this right now, but I saw a note to myself. I guess it's pre-COVID, pre-storm. I guess the locusts will be next. What I have on my notes that the council had a question a while back, and we were going to put together a presentation for the council, or you were going to put together a presentation for the council on how we categorize and handle maintenance of alleys. Not yet. Get some stuff done, get some rest, keep everybody healthy, but please put that in your notes for somewhere down the line that we would like to have that.
Yes, sir.
Any more questions from anyone? Well, if not, Mr. Chair, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Well, that concludes today's committee meetings. If there's no other questions or comments, we are adjourned until 6 o'clock.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.